everyone, my name is Marian Guevara and welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. My apologies, in my last video, my TBR bookshelf tour, I talked about how since I have a week off, it's spring break, I'm going to be filming a lot more, and that just never happened. This past sem has been quite hectic for me, so I haven't had really enough time to read, at least as much as I wanted to read. However, I have been able to get a few books in, and as you can tell from the thumbnail, I have encountered my first 5-star of the year 2026. And as soon as I finished it, I knew that I had to do a review/discussion video on it, and that is on Outer Dark by Cormac McCarthy. So this isn't my first Cormac McCarthy. I read No Country for Old Men years ago, and I picked it up because it's at least one of the two most popular McCarthys, The Road and No Country for Old Men, both of them having film adaptations. And I remember finishing it and thinking, yeah, I liked it. I remember giving it 4 stars, but after putting it down, I never thought about it. It never got me interested or got me itching to pick up another McCarthy. So years passed and I never read any more from Cormac McCarthy. And then I was in my Barnes & Noble, kind of was going through the stacks, and I read the synopsis of this one, and I was very, very much intrigued. And I had a gut feeling, that this was going to be a book, a McCarthy, that appeals to me more, and I was definitely right, because I do prefer this. I do prefer Outer Dark over No Country for Old Men. So Outer Dark came out in 1968, and it takes place at the turn of the century in Appalachia. We're following a brother and sister. The sister has given birth, and the brother has taken the child and basically abandoned him in the woods. He tells the sister that the child died. However, she finds out that he is lying, and she goes out to search for the baby that he has abandoned. And so you follow this sister and brother, Kulla and Rinthi, as they're kind of traversing the countryside, each on their own missions, while at the same time there's these 3 strangers that also roam that same countryside, spreading and sowing death wherever they go. So that is just a basic summary of Outer Dark. Now this video will be partitioned, so in this first portion, this first half, I'll be going over, my non-spoilery review, going over the general elements of the book, while the latter half, the latter portion, I'll be going into spoiler territory, going into details, talking about my theories, my thoughts more in depth. So yeah, for those who have not read Outer Dark and are intrigued, stick around for this first portion. And for those who have read Outer Dark, definitely stick around for that second half. One comment you're probably going to hear about Outer Dark is that it reads like a fairy tale or a fable. And this element actually helped make the book appealing to me, but I know this is not going to be the case for every reader. If you're the type of reader who wants a concrete story, you know where it's taking place, when it's taking place, you have this cast of characters that are very detailed, and you explore them in depth, you're probably not going to be all that jazzed about Outer Dark. I did mention that it takes place at the turn of the century, so I'm thinking 1899, 1900 in Appalachia. But the thing is, I would not have known that just from reading the story. I only know that because the back of the book told me. Aside from the mention of 1 or 2 counties and then the dialect that the characters speak, I don't have a strong sense of exactly where this book or when this book is taking place. Cormac McCarthy doesn't concretely anchor the story to a specific time, setting, or anything like that. So it adds this very nebulous feel to the book, which actually helps make it feel more like a fable, more like a fairy tale. In terms of characters, they are not necessarily, I would say, individuals, but they're more like figures, more akin to the woodcutter or the witch in a fairy tale. They ebb in and out of the plot, as Kulla and Rinthi, our 2 main characters, our brother and sister, kind of meet with them and then they move on. Rather than being characters they feel more like symbols that are pointing towards something much deeper, much more mystical. And in terms of atmosphere, this book, I guess you could, from the title, it's pretty dark. I would say it's definitely oppressive, desolate. It's also uncanny. And I think that's due to this nebulous feel that McCarthy has sort of imbued in this story. The setting or the world feels familiar. You know, it's the American South, but at the same time, you feel detached from it in a way that it makes it feel uncanny. It's recognizable but then unrecognizable at the same time, you know? In terms of violence, there is quite a bit of violence. However, I would say there's only one real gnarly scene, and it happens towards the end of this book. And yeah, it did get under my skin. It did get my heart pounding, I will not lie. In terms of the prose, oh dear Lord, I think one of the most standout parts about this book, and it definitely stood out to me when I first started reading it, is the prose. And I'm just going to give like just a bit, a sample of what to expect. It howled execration upon the dim Cameron world of its nativity, wail on wail, while he lay there gibbering with palsied jaw hasps, his hands putting back the night, like some witless paraclete, beleaguered with all limbo's clamor. What? I'm not gonna lie, McCarthy's prose might have rewired my brain just a tiny bit. I had to get used to the writing initially, but the more I read, the more I kind of got into the groove of it. This prose is not going to appeal for everyone, obviously, but I will say that it is just some beautiful writing, and even in sort of like the gruesome descriptions, the way he writes it, there's a beauty to it. So overall, I think that's what you can expect when it comes to Outer Dark. Get ready for some beautiful prose, a dark, oppressive, desolate atmosphere, a story that reads like a fable, like a fairy tale, you know, that does delve into themes of, you know, sin, retribution, destruction, death. This is not a feel-good book at all. I think for some people, you have to be in the right type of mood for this book. However, as dark as it is, it's very powerful as well. Now we have moved on to the spoilery portion of the video, so hello to everyone who has read Outer Dark, and please, 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 if you have read the book, leave a comment down below. I would love to have a discussion with you. So you might have noticed that I left out the detail that the baby is a product of Culla and Rinthy's incestuous relationship. I feel that I would have preferred to not know about this detail before going into the book. That I find out about it, you know, organically as I'm reading the story. On one hand, knowing is what got me to pick up the book, and at the same time, I would have preferred to have not known. So yeah, I just left out that detail because I do feel like people should go into this more blind than anything. So I didn't watch anyone's in-depth review on Outer Dark, mainly because I didn't want anyone's thoughts coloring my own, but I did do a cursory glance of what people thought of, you know, the story in general, you know, the characters, the events, you know, talking about what this specifically meant, what did this symbolize. And one thing that I saw crop up quite a bit is the idea that the three men are like Furies. You know, they're Fury type characters, hunting down Culla to punish him for his sin, whether that is his incestuous relationship with his sister or abandoning the baby in the woods. However, I'm not inclined to agree that, you know, these characters are there for the specific purpose of punishing Culla. I mean, I can get it because, like, whenever Culla leaves a place, the three men show up, so it looks like they're following him. But the thing is, when you first open Outer Dark, on the first page, you're not being introduced to Culla, you're not introduced to Rinthy. You're introduced to the three men. And to me, what that meant was that evil is here. Evil is present. Evil exists. It's roaming the land, independent of what Culla and Rinthy have done and what Culla is going to do with the baby. And I definitely do feel that the trio, these three men, are meant to represent evil. You know, there is a lot of dark, demonic connotation to them. I mean, in the first encounter that Culla has with them around the fire, he sees the leader and he sees him, you know, sitting behind the fire. But then there's something in his mind's eye that changes, and it looks like the leader is sitting in the fire, almost like seated within it, like on a throne of fire in a way. It says here, the fire had died some, and he could see him better, sitting beyond it, and the scene compressed into a kind of depthlessness, so that the black woods beyond them hung across his eyes oppressively, and the man seemed to be seated in the fire itself, cradling the flames to his body, as if there was something there beyond all warming. Another detail is that the man's boots, I believe, are likened to hooves. And obviously one of the most popular images of Satan, of the devil, is, with, I believe it's the goat's feet. So yeah, there is plenty of demonic connotation to them. And I mean, just think about what they do throughout the book. Everywhere they go, they're causing death. They're killing someone. There's heinous acts that follow them throughout, the story. So I wouldn't necessarily view them as sort of like these arbiters of, justice, something akin to Nemesis or the Furies, but rather something evil that is stalking the land that Kulla keeps coming across. And that's another thing. I wouldn't say that they're hunting him down, because Kulla is the one that is always coming across them. In the last encounter that Kulla has with the three men, it says, "The bearded one was tunneling gouts of mud from the welt of his boot with a stick. Well, I see you didn't have no trouble finding us. I wasn't hunting you. You got here all right for somebody bound elsewhere. I wasn't bound nowheres. I just seen the fire. I like to keep a good fire. A man never knows what all might chance along, does he? No. No, anything's liable to wash up, from nowhere's nowhere bound." "Where are you bound?" Holmes said. "I ain't," the man said, "by nothing." He looked up at home. "We ain't hard to find, once you've found us." If anything, it felt more to me that the three men were kind of just on their own trek through the land, sowing, death and evil wherever they go. And it's Kulla's aimless journey that is always gravitating towards them, not necessarily them hunting him down or seeking him out in specific. Now, moving on from the three men, I'm going to be talking about Kulla himself. And it's sort of like one of the major elements of the book that really stuck out to me. And it's his character, and it revolves around the nature of his sin. So some people point to his sin being, the incestuous relationship, which, by the way, I believe, from what I've read, I got the vibe that it was a consensual relationship, like they were lovers, so to speak. So people point to that in the incest as the sin, while others point to him abandoning the baby in the woods, basically leaving him to die, as the major sin. I lean more towards the latter, because I believe that it sort of epitomizes a major flaw in Kulla. And that's just his complete inaction with regards to everything. There is an inherent shiftlessness in Kulla. You get a sense that he does not believe or stand for anything at all. He is perfectly content roaming, the countryside, asking for work, getting denied, or getting a job. And that's basically just about it. That's all that will suffice to him. There is no goal that he is reaching for. Even Rinthi, who is going on her own journey, at least has an endgame. She is looking for the Tinker. She is going to get her baby back. But for Kulla, he's just wandering aimlessly through the countryside, just asking for work. And throughout his journey, he is constantly being, accused of something, beaten, shot at. And you never get a sense that that any of this evokes any strong emotion out of it. There is no, scenes where he is kind of reflecting on his situation, what has brought him here. Nothing. He kind of just shrugs it off and then moves on. Inaction colors a lot of Kulla's interactions with other people. I mean, towards the end of the book, he encounters these shepherds, and then obviously there's this stampede of sheep, and Kulla's on top of this rock, and he notices one of the shepherds, I believe it's the one he was talking to, is getting swept away. And he's not attempting to help or anything like that. He's just coldly, observing him in a very detached manner, and just watches him fall off the bluff. And then even looking back to the beginning of the book, when you see his sin, his great sin in abandoning the baby, you get the sense that he does feel shame about what he and Rinthi had done, and the child is sort of like the epitome of that shame. So he doesn't kill the baby, which would be an act of evil, but neither does he give up the child to someone to look after it, which would have been an act of mercy, an act of good. he doesn't go to the store that he goes to buy supplies and leave the child there for him to be picked up. He doesn't go to the tinker to give up the baby. He leaves the child in the forest. It's like the ultimate abandonment, the ultimate source of inaction. It's this unwillingness to think or do anything towards either the good or the evil that kind of makes up who Cullen is. And the thing is, he reminds me a lot of a passage in Dante's Inferno. So Dante's Inferno, one of my favorite books. I studied this back in high school, really enjoyed it. And for those who don't know, this is about the poet Dante journeying through hell, being escorted through hell by the poet Virgil. And I remember a passage after they enter through the gates of hell. Like right after they enter the gates of hell, they come across what is, if you look online, these souls are described as the lukewarms. So here I'm going to read a bit. Master, what is it that I hear? Who are those people so defeated by their pain? And he to me, this miserable way is taken by the sorry souls of those who lived without disgrace and without praise. They now commingle with the coward angels, the company of those who were not rebels, nor faithful to their God, but stood apart. The heavens that their beauty not be lessened have cast them out, nor will deep hell receive them. Even the wicked cannot glory in them. And honestly, that just reminds me of Cullen so much because, yes, he's often accused of crimes, robbing graves, killing someone, and he doesn't do any of that. He hasn't committed any evil, but he doesn't do any good either. And that sentence, like, the wicked cannot glory in them. And it reminds me of his interactions with the leader of the trio, this trio that I associate with, evil. Throughout his conversations with the leader, you get a sense that he finds Cullen almost pathetic. So here, Cullen and the leader are talking. I never laid nothing off no tinker. I reckon you'd figured he'd keep him hid for you. I never figured nothing. What did you have to give him? I never give nobody nothing. I never had nothing. Never figured nothing, never had nothing, never was nothing, the man said. And another thing is that if Cullen was evil, you would think that this leader, would try to indoctrinate him into his gang, like, come with us. But he doesn't. And the thing is that throughout the book, this trio leaves, bodies behind. Everywhere they go, they sow death. And it's strange because Cullen meets up with them twice, and yet they let him live. Almost as if they don't view him worthy enough to kill. As it says in Dante's Inferno, even the wicked cannot glory in them. I'm Catholic, and so another thing that I was reminded of, because we say this creed during Mass, and a portion of it goes like this: I have sinned both in my thoughts and in my words, in what I have done and what I have failed to do. And ultimately, that is also Cullen. His great sin of failing to do anything, failing to do any good. And I feel that is greatly epitomized, or you see a great example of that towards the end, when he meets with the trio for the second and final time. He ends up in the same, it's implied that it is the same glade where he abandoned the baby. The tinker beforehand has brought the child now. I think it's implied that he's trying to do right by Rinthy and bring the child to him, to her. However, the trio find him first, kill the tinker, and then they now have the kid. So now Cullen enters this glade where he has abandoned the baby, and he comes across these three men, and the child is there. And you get a sense that, okay, this is his opportunity to kind of rectify that act of abandonment he did a while back. You know that the trio have unsavory plans for this child. However, Cullen, instead of saying, hey, give me the child, leave him alone, does nothing. That child has nothing to do with me. And like I said, like even the trio tell him like, hey, this could be that kid that you left, that you abandoned. And then Cullen still, nothing. Child has nothing to do with me, has nothing to do with me. Towards the very end, he does give like a half-hearted, oh, my sister could take the kid, but like, look at the way he says it. Not, give me the child, I will take the child. He pawns it off to his sister again. My sister will be the one to take it, not me. My sister will be the one. So I think it's just a really powerful scene because he's brought back to that moment and he has a chance to rectify, to do good, but he just refuses to do so. He doesn't hurt the child, he doesn't kill him, but he doesn't save the child either. Once again, preferring to do nothing, content to do nothing. Interestingly enough, I feel that Cullen's journey mimics the punishment of the lukewarms in Dante's Inferno. So it says here, and I, looking more closely, saw a banner that, as it wheeled about, raced on, so quick that any respite seemed unsuited to it. Behind that banner trailed so long a file of people I should never have believed that death could have unmade so many souls. After I identified a few, I saw and recognized the shade of him, who made, through cowardice, the great refusal. At once I understood with certainty this company contained the cowardly, hateful to God and to his enemies. These wretched ones who never were alive, went naked and were stung again and again by horseflies and by wasps that circled them. I mean, Cullen is just going on this journey, circling around through these counties, looking for a job, constantly being hounded, by people, being shot at, beaten, with no real destination at hand. So I just find it very interesting that there's a bit of mirroring going on. I'm not saying that Cormac McCarthy read Dante's Inferno and was thinking about it during Outer Dark, but it was just very interesting to see, some elements that felt similar to me as I was reading it. And the book even ends with another example of Cullen's inaction, his last inaction that we see. He's wandering the countryside once again, and we don't know how much time has passed since his encounter with the trio and seeing what happens with the child. And for all we know, it has no emotional effect on him whatsoever. None at all. He comes across this blind man. They talk a while, they separate. He goes down this path and he notices that it ends at this swamp. And he stops because he knows that if he goes any further, he's going to get sucked in and die. So he goes back the way he comes, and he's standing there on the road. And it says here, going back the way by which he came, he met again the blind man, tapping through the dusk. He waited very still by the side of the road, but the blind man, passing, turned his head and smiled upon him his blind smile. Holm watched him out of sight. He wondered where the blind man was going, and did he know how the road ended? Someone should tell a blind man before setting him out that way. Someone should tell him, not him, someone. He knows that road that the blind man is going to end up at that swamp, and knows it leads to certain death. And yet he doesn't do anything. Someone should do it, not me, someone. For me, the trio point to the harsh reality that sin, death, evil is out there, roaming the earth. However, the greater tragedy lies in a character like Cullen, who roam around in the outer dark. But not only that, they are content, utterly, blissfully content to do so. So those are my thoughts about Outer Dark. Obviously, there's so much to talk about with this book. I didn't really go in depth about Rinthi and her specific journey. I mainly focused on the elements that stuck out to me the most. So yeah, please, the comment section is right there. Leave a comment if you have read Outer Dark. Please share your thoughts. Do you disagree? Do you agree with what I have to say? Obviously, people are going to have different interpretations to this of this story. I'm not a Cormac McCarthy expert or anything like that. I literally just read 2 books from the man. But I would love to have a conversation with you all about, what you thought about this book. Have you read Outer Dark? Did you enjoy it? apparently we're getting a film adaptation for Out of Dark. I believe it starts filming this year. I'm not sure, but it is Lily Rose Depp, if I'm not mistaken. Is it Lily Rose Depp? The one who starred in Nosferatu. She's going to play Rinthi. And then Jacob Elordi is going to play Cullen. Now, I don't doubt either of their acting ability. But the thing is, like, with Elordi, I don't know. Like, physically, I don't know. The man is just tall and very handsome. Like, too handsome to play Cullen. I'm not sure. But I am very eager to see that project. So yeah, looking forward to it whenever it comes out. So yes, anyone who's a Cormac McCarthy fan, if you've read Out of Dark, please leave a comment down below. Would love to discuss this book with you. And yeah, thank you all for sitting here and bearing through my incoherent thoughts about this Cormac McCarthy book. And so until next time, bye.